Good afternoon, everyone. My name is David Moore. I'm the police chief in Janesville. I want to thank you for coming on such short notice today. This investigation is changing rapidly. In fact, some of the information I'll share with you we've only received within the last hour. And in particular, that was the autopsy results. We try and get this information provided for you as quickly as we can. But in doing so, at times we're not going to have the level of detail that you want, and we will not speculate on facts of the case. I presume all of you have the press release from today. If you don't, there's copies in the back of the room. In the back of the room, you'll also find a flyer of a vehicle that we're interested in some information on. You'll find a flyer on the victim, Brittany Cross. And then there are also yesterday's press release and a flyer on Mary Coulthard, who is still missing. But again, we thank you for appearing on such short notice. The investigation of the body located yesterday at 533 North Main Street continues. The identity of the victim is Brittany Cross, age 21, of 8985 First Street, number 9, Edgerton, Wisconsin. And this address is commonly referred to as Indian Ford in Rural Rock County. The autopsy results of the victim show the cause of death to be blunt impact head injury. Ms. Cross is reported to be an acquaintance or girlfriend of Clayton Courtney. This investigation is now deemed a homicide. The investigation has revealed that the victim and Clayton Courtney were together in the vicinity of Traxler Park, the Memorial Drive Bridge, and 533 North Main Street in the late afternoon or early evening hours of May 4th, 2014. The body of Ms. Cross was located in the early morning hours of May 5th. Detectives are still reviewing the activities of Mr. Courtney over the last number of days. The police department is releasing a photograph of Mr. Courtney's vehicle. It's a blue 1998 Dodge Dakota extended cab truck, which is now in the custody of the police department. You will note on the vehicle flyer that there is a distinctive damage to the rear bumper. Any citizen that may have seen this vehicle over the last number of days is encouraged to contact the police department and describe when and where it was observed. In particular, we are interested in the hours of 5 o'clock p.m. until 10 o'clock p.m. May 4th, 2014. Mr. Courtney is the lone suspect in the Brittany Cross homicide. Since Mr. Courtney is being held on a previous attempted first-degree homicide arrest, the police department is afforded the time to continue this investigation without concern of Mr. Courtney being a threat to the community. No additional missing persons have been reported to the police department, nor has a review of our calls for service over the last 4 days revealed any tangible leads. While this information is encouraging, we still urge citizens to contact the police department with any additional potential leads or suspicious circumstances. The police department has assigned a police liaison for the Cross family during this time of sorrow and grief. We will keep the family informed of the investigation. And on behalf of the police department, our thoughts and prayers go out to the Cross family. Regarding the missing person, Mary Coulthard, there are no new leads despite water and air searches of the Rock River today. The police department has assigned a police liaison to the Coulthard family to keep the family updated on this investigation. And with that, I'll answer any questions you may have.
Is there any reason, Chief, to suspect that there are more victims out there of Mr. Courtney?
Our only reason to believe is Mr. Courtney's statement that he had killed 3 people before we encountered him on North Pontiac Drive Sunday evening. That's our reason to believe that there could be additional victims. We've got nothing at this point to substantiate that, with the exception of Brittany Cross.
Chief, is there any possibility that Courtney's movements may have coincided with Mary Coulthard's disappearance in that area?
We have tracked much of Mr. Courtney's movements, and to date, we have not been able to parallel Mr. Courtney's movements with Mary Coulthard's movements.
So just so that I'm clear, you're saying that you think that possibly could be more victims out there, as he said that he killed 3 people?
We have not ruled that out, that's correct.
Not ruled that out.
Right, and that's why we're asking for the public's help. That's why we have the vehicle photos out here. That's why we have Brittany Cross's photo given to you. We are still very interested in tracking Mr. Courtney's activities over the last number of days.
How far have you reached out to other police departments to see if they have any missing persons or any suspicious activity?
We have reached out countywide to the Rock County Sheriff's Department. We think that it's probably related to our immediate area. Certainly the coverage that all of you have afforded us have allowed us to reach out to many parts of the state and Illinois.
Will he be charged with her death right now, or is that something you're holding off on?
The matter is still under investigation. Again, because he's incarcerated, that gives us the ability to continue our investigation at this point. But no, he is not under arrest. He is the lone suspect.
Why is he a suspect? Other than they were together? Is that the only connection you have to them?
Right. We can place Mr. Courtney together with the victim. At the time, we believe that the death occurred, and of course we have the statements from Mr. Courtney that he has killed somebody. Those are the biggest factors that take us to that level of probable cause.
Chief, is there any consideration of broadening your contacts, your networking, to find out if there's any missing persons regionally?
Yeah, that's certainly something we can look at. Again, we're still trying to track down his activities. If that were to take us that direction, we certainly could reach out regionally.
Do you suspect that Ms. Cross is one of the victims that he was referring to, of the 3 people?
That would be our belief, yes.
Did the autopsy reveal if she died on Sunday or sometime on Monday before you found the body?
Yeah, I don't have that level of information, and I hope you understand that that autopsy was not even complete at noon when I got this preliminary information. So again, we're trying to push this information out to you as quickly as we can. And when we do so, there's a lack of some specificity. I don't have that information.
Is there any idea about where Ms. Cross was killed?
Yes. I won't disclose that, but I can tell you that we feel we will know where Ms. Cross was killed, yes.
Do you think the mud found on Mr. Courtney by his roommate later that night was connected to where she was killed?
I can tell you that certainly would be some forensic evidence that we'll be looking at.
Do you have a weapon? Possible murder weapon?
No.
Have you been able to tell?
I'll go back on that. We may. The autopsy shows blunt trauma. With that type of injury, there's a variety of weapons that could be used, and we have confiscated items at the scene that could be a weapon. But to conclusively say that we have the weapon, I cannot say that.
Chief, does Courtney have any history of exaggerated claims, of any sort of bravado that might account for what he said?
I'm not aware of any.
So you're still acting on the assumption that he was relating factual information when he said he had killed 3 people?
Well, what I can tell you, he says that he killed people, and we've got a dead young woman in this community based on his statement.
And when he was in his rage, he made comments that led you to this body specifically. Did he make a specific comment that led you to believe that he killed Ms. Cross specifically?
No, he made comments of killing 3 people. As we looked at his activities and who he was associated with immediately before the incident up on Pontiac Drive, that took us to the Traxler Park area, the Memorial Drive Bridge area, and then the search by the officers is how we found the body.
Have you been able to tell, Chief, whether or not Ms. Cross was killed before the attack on his roommate or after?
Again, that level of autopsy information is not available. We'll probably be hearing but we just don't have it yet.
What were the items that you recovered that you said could have been used as a weapon, and was there blood on any of those?
Yeah, and I'll tell you folks, this is early in the investigation. There are certain details we're not going to release. Those are one of the details we will not release.
Chief, as you've backtracked in terms of his movements, you say that they don't parallel Mary Coulthard's. Does that mean you are ruling him out as having any connection with her disappearance, or what is the status?
No, we are not ruling him out, but I can tell you as we reach back and follow Mr. Courtney's movements, it has not paralleled with Mary Coulthard's.
Chief, were any other any drugs or alcohol or anything you been able to tell when he was arrested?
I can tell you that we believe that he had taken alcohol and cocaine.
And it is now for sure then that Miss Brittany Cross is the alleged girlfriend with whom he went to do drugs and alcohol apparently underneath the bridge?
Yes.
Do you have any more info about her whereabouts, where she used to work at, like her specific relationship with him, just drug buddies?
Yeah, we have tracked Brittany's movements as well over the last few days. We've not put all of that together, but that is part of the investigation, yes.
Any toxicology reports coming in right now, whether she had partaken in any drug use also?
I'm certainly certain that's part of the autopsy report, and as you know, those take some time. We don't have that.
Chief, have you found anything on social media or otherwise that would give you some clues as to what this suspect's intent may have been for the weekend?
Regardless of social media, I can tell you that we have not determined what his intent was.
Do you have any kind of motive?
It's very similar to the last question. We don't have motive. Those are things that we're working on. We hope to develop that level of detail.
Is he pretty forthcoming so far in the contact you've had with him in interviews? Or what is his demeanor like?
After the foot chase Sunday evening and upon apprehension, he immediately asked for his attorney by name, and that pretty much concluded our conversation with him.
Are you trying to work through the attorney to determine if there are other victims in this case?
I can tell you our officers under an exception of the law, because with the potential of other victims in the area that still could be alive, our officers did speak with Mr. Courtney again after he asked for his attorney, and he declined to cooperate with us.
Chief, that picture of Mr. Courtney with the tattoo and the mud on him that the police took really jarred a lot of people in the community. What has this been like for you and your officers to deal with a case like this? It's a very unusual case, very disturbing case, not just for people in this community, but for people all over the country. What has this been like for you guys?
We work very hard for these days. We like to be on top of our game when these types of crimes come to our community. They don't have to happen often. We only had one homicide last year. That was a young baby that died from an unintentional overdose. So the frequency of homicides that touch our community are infrequent. But we work very hard to be prepared for these days. Our staff has worked round the clock on both of these cases for the last number of days. We typically don't have them coming, both significant cases coming to the police department at the same time. But to answer your question, we go about our business as best we can. I'm very proud of the efforts of the officers, detectives, and supervisors.
Chief, do you have the blue truck in your possession now?
We do.
All right.
And has he been charged formally with anything yet?
He will be charged this afternoon. I don't know exactly what time he goes to court.
With what, sir?
We arrested for attempted first-degree homicide, criminal damage to property, attempted arson, and all of them have a domestic violence rider. But those were what the arrests were for. District Attorney David O'Leary will determine what he is charged with.
Chief, is there any history of domestic violence involving Brittany Cross and Clayton Courtney, or any history of animus between them?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Chief, as far as the truck goes, you're asking people in the community to look for kind of of jar their memories for seeing it out there. What are you asking them to look for exactly? Obviously, if they've seen it, but anything specifically?
No, we're interested in any movement of that vehicle over the last number of days. People can call the police department here at 755-3100 or our Crime Stoppers at 756-3636. But any movement would be of interest to us. Any movement with the victim, Brittany Cross, would be of interest to us. Given the mud that was on suspect Courtney, if the vehicle was in a muddy area or a rural area, that certainly would be of interest to us. But we're willing to accept any information we can. We'll work through it and determine the connection and validity of it.
Do you think both of them were in that truck at one point, or are you looking for sightings of both of them in it at one point, or one of them, or you're looking for a location of that vehicle in a certain place?
All of what you mentioned. We're throwing a wide net out there. We're not going to. We will take serious any lead that a citizen is willing to call us about, whether it's the location and sightings of the victim, the suspect, or the vehicle.
And that would be right in the Janesville area, or this is spread out?
Janesville area, Rock County area, actually wherever. It makes no difference where that vehicle was seen. We'd be interested in it.
Chief, these are adult people. They're meeting under a bridge. They're not middle schoolers. Was there some reason one would meet under a bridge in the park? And why not go home? Any idea?
And I guess this gets us into personal preference, personal lifestyles. I can tell you Traxler Park is a beautiful park. I don't know if that played part of the role in this.
You mentioned cocaine you believe he was taking. Do you know if that was crack or powder?
I don't know.
Is there anybody else reported missing, Chief, other than this Goldheart in here?
There is not.
Are you starting to not really buy what he was saying in terms of I've killed 3 people?
I can't tell you that we're there yet. We're encouraged that there's been no reported missing persons or suspicious circumstances in the last day and a half. But to suggest that we're not resolute with our investigations, no, we're continuing forward. We just need help as to if any citizen has seen anything, so we can direct our efforts. The normal things that a police department would do in terms of calls for service, abandoned 911 calls. We reviewed all those for a number of days. We searched some areas. We determined that there was no validity or concern to those, and it did not take us to any additional crimes or bodies.
Does Mr. Courtney have any kind of history with your police department that might have put him on your radar at all, to be kind of keeping an eye on him at all?
No, he certainly was not to that level. I can tell you the officers knew Mr. Courtney from their contacts with him, and he had a series of arrests, but nothing that would take him to a level of concern that we would be checking on him frequently.
How did you know they were together that night, the victim and Mr. Courtney?
Right. And I have to credit many of the people in this room. The release of information to our community helped develop witnesses, and those witnesses contacted us, and we were able to place the victim and suspect together in the Traxler Park area and the Memorial Drive Bridge area. And, for that matter, 533 North Main Street.
Do you know where they were first? Which location? The 533 North Main or Traxler?
Yes.
And where were they first?
I'm going to leave that for the detectives to work through, but we do know.
Is there any connection at all between Mr. Courtney and Ms. Goldheart at all? Record or that they were seen together at all?
Again, those are some of the things we're looking at. We're tracking both victim and suspect, and at times we are able to put the two of them together separate from Sunday evening, yes. But again, we're still working on it.
You're talking about Brittany Cross, right?
Yes.
Okay.
When I say the victim, yes.
Well, I'm talking about Ms. Goldheart.
Oh, I'm sorry. I misunderstood your question.
Is there any
No,
connection?
we have those two paths have not crossed at all, no.
What's your approach to continuing to try to find her whereabouts?
Yes, we're working with the family. We continue searching on the ground. We've had airplanes in the air. We've had boats in the river. And we continue to search for her.
Do you have the condition of the stabbing victim?
He has been released from the hospital. Very fortunate young man.
Is he cooperating at all with the investigation?
Yes.
When he said he killed the 3 people, is that in a short period of time? Is that over several days? Did he not indicate?
He said tonight. I've killed 3 people tonight, and then he went on to attack the victim up on Pontiac Drive.
And that would have been Saturday night?
That was Sunday evening.
Sunday evening.
Yes.
Health concerns with Mary Coulthard, like anything that would cause her to wander and take off?
Those are areas we're continuing to investigate. Yes, and that may have played into Ms. Coulthard's disappearance, but I'm not prepared to speak to them today.
Chief, it appears that Mr. Courtney and the stabbing victim from Sunday night were roommates, maybe even close buddies. Why? Do you have any knowledge of why Mr. Courtney was, so upset that he wanted to stab the other man?
No, we certainly don't know, and nor does the co-tenant. He did not know why Mr. Courtney was acting that way.
You think drugs played a part? You think the cocaine played a part?
Well, you're asking me to speculate. I would not rule that out.
Anything in his personal life, relationship-wise, with this woman, his workplace? Are you aware of anything that was out of the ordinary prior to Sunday for Courtney?
Yeah, so far, the investigation has not revealed that at all.
Chief, you're here in the news release, you discuss that Ms. Cross was an acquaintance or girlfriend. Do you know the relationship exactly between the two? Were they girlfriend, boyfriend? Do you know how close they were?
I don't think they were exclusive, but friends described them as being boyfriend and girlfriend. Folks, I think we've about finished up here. Again, thank you for coming on such short notice. Flyers are in the back of the room. Also, if you haven't been noticed by Nixle, we push information out 24 hours a day on Nixle. There's some flyers back there that will allow you to get signed up for our Nixle. Thank you, folks.
Thanks, Chief.